The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. After making the crossing to the other side of the sea, Jesus and his disciples came to land at Gennesaret and tied up there. As they were leaving the boat, people immediately recognized him. They scurried about the surrounding country and began to bring in the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. Whatever villages or towns or countryside he entered, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might touch only the tassel on his cloak, and as many as touched it were healed. The Gospel of the Lord. Yeah, of course, my first thought about touching the tassel on Jesus' cloak is from the third season of The Chosen. So, I don't know, you can either get bored by my references of The Chosen or you can just watch it and join me in it. And one of the reasons why, yeah, I know, Nita is joining me. So, one of the reasons why I find that image so striking is because I cried all the way through that scene. So it's I don't know if it wasn't traumatic for me. I think it's like actually the relief of trauma. But this is, I don't know, so exposed to my own healing that Jesus is working for me. As I try only to touch the tassel on his cloak. I mean, what profound faith it is to believe that Jesus has what it takes to heal me. Right, and what and only to be close to him, like almost like tangentially close to him, that will be enough. I think this is the faith that we have to have in our hearts, and of course, we see this massive movement of people. We've seen it in Mark before. In fact, it's almost like background noise at this point in the Gospel of Mark. It's just people coming to him from all over, surrounding him, pressing in on him. Just crowds. People want to be healed, and excitement is growing that he might be who they are awaiting. Right? Who in hope they have awaited. He is Israel's king. And the Messiah of God. So we also have, I think, somewhat perfectly paired readings this morning. We went back to Genesis because this section of the Gospel of Mark, this one, and perhaps even the couple immediately preceding it, have real strong echoes of the Genesis accounts. Not actually the first. I mean, I would say, the first part maybe in the sheer creative power of God. That's what we hear in the first reading. And just before this, in the Gospel of Mark, we've seen the multiplication of loaves. Right, and this is something of just the sheer creative power of God. Yeah, there's no other way to explain what's happening in and through Jesus except to say that. Yeah, he is the embodiment of the true and living God. He's the embodiment of the good creator God. But as we move forward through the Genesis account, we will see Adam and Eve striding alongside God in the Garden of Eden, in that perfect home that God created for man. And here, as we look at Jesus what happened right before this was he was walking on water. Okay, so the feeding of the thousands, the walking on water, and now we see this. He gets out of the boat, and everyone starts again crushing in. What we see is Jesus moving about as actually the new Adam, or the last Adam. So in this sense, he is revealed to be the truly human being. So it's not as though God is. Inappropriately intervening with the laws of nature and this kind of thing, which is a completely modern way of thinking about it. It's actually that what we see in Jesus is man restored. Or we see man as the restored image and likeness of God, right? He's bearing the image of God, and he is who man was always meant to be. So yeah, I mean, I can say it, you were always meant to walk on water. I'm not sure that I would try it, But I think our awe at what Jesus is doing is sometimes misdirected also. Like when when we say we point to his divinity, we mean something very different than what is being revealed to us in the scriptures. We say it's divinity, like it's inaccessible. It's out there. Only God could do. This is kind of like the wrong way to look at it, because we should be looking at, again, the truly human being. And look, I mean, Jesus gives his disciples power also to cast out demons and to heal the sick and the rest. Right? So it's not as though humans can't do that. Okay, so anyway, this is it. Jesus as the renewed image bearer, renewing the image bearing capacity of his people and of the people that he comes in contact with. Of course, he can only do this as the truly human being, because he is perfectly centered on the true and living God. Right? This is his entire identity. It's who he is. He is God's son. He is God's beloved son. And this is the same for us as we seek to build up God's kingdom of holiness and justice, as we seek to advance God's reign, advance his rule, both allow him to rule in us and bring new life and order to his world through us. We have to be also as centered on God as we can be. And we recognize even that this is a grace. God has to give us the strength and the rest to enable us to do that, to center on him and to worship him alone. Yeah, and when we do this, we are part of God's plan to advance his reign to every corner of creation. I'll say here the high point for us in our living out this this restored or renewed image bearing capacity is martyrdom. Yeah. Why is it? It's because martyrdom is the act of being centered on God without being deterred by anything, not even death. We're not distracted by anything, not even death. So this is it, right? Now, I'm not exhorting you to be martyrs, right? I'm not. I mean, I hope that we will be prepared if and when God calls us to it. But the exhortation actually is to God-centeredness, because martyrdom without God-centeredness is nothing. It's only when our hearts and our lives are centered on the true and living God, when we're living lives of worship, of praise, and when we're pouring ourselves out totally in his service. That's the life that makes sense of martyrdom. But that is the life that advances God's rule, and that's our goal, right? And again, we see it in Jesus. It is the reordering of creation, God's good and orderly world, but it's more than that. It's a re-enlivening of God's world, and it begins with the re-enlivening of our hearts. So we have come here to worship the true and living God, who has been revealed to us in and as Christ Jesus. And we bring our hearts before him in offering today, that he might heal us, renew us, restore us, so that we could get about the work of re-enlivening his fallen world.